3 teens were arrested today for defacing the Kensington Park War Memorial overnight. The destruction includes painted messages against the military and the war in the Middle East. The 3 teens were picked up in the early morning hours after evidence was left at the scene.
Grandpa, something wrong?
Some people sure have short memories, and those who are too young to know need to be taught. Come on, I want to show you guys something.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
At dawn on the morning of the 6th of June, 1944, 225 Rangers jumped off the British landing craft and ran to the bottom of these cliffs. 225 came here. After 2 days of fighting, only 90 could still bear arms. These are the boys of Puente Hope. These are the men who took the cliffs. These are the champions who helped free a continent. These are the heroes who helped end a war. You are men who in your, quote, lives fought for life and left the vivid air signed with your honor.
In the name of God and country, I learned to defy gravity.
To honor my family,
I lived in the belly of a beast.
I fixed the hearts of iron monsters.
I became a worm in the mud for dignity,
for honor,
for righteousness' sake,
for God and country.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
For you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
For you.
For you.
For you.
For you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you, and I do it again.
Do you know how blessed you are to have gotten up this morning and breathed your first breath of American air? We live in the greatest country God ever let me create it, so would you rise and remove cover? Let's honor this land and not forget about those who have fought and died to provide us with the liberty and freedom that we all cherish.
We didn't earn those chairs. Your talent didn't earn those chairs. How tall you are and how fast you run, how well you shoot, didn't earn those chairs. Me draw up a play, me recruit real hard, me work real hard, I didn't earn the chair. These guys, when they were your age, interrupted their life. They paused their education. they changed their career. And they gave their life for those chairs. And so when the anthem is played, we're going to stand like grown men, and we're going to honor men like this that gave their life so we could have a chair to sit in. And in the 2.5 minutes that the song is played and somebody sings it or the music is played, we're going to stand at attention in honor of these men. Because that freedom allows us to do what we're doing. I don't care if you sing, but I want you to know the words. And I want you to be respectful of the words, because those words represent people's lives. And all that we're thinking about is these men who earned the right for these chairs to be here.
So this guy is a football player, I'm told. I'm not a sports guy. And he's been making a lot of headlines by refusing to stand during the national anthem. In interviews, he said the protest is to take a stand against police brutality. Is he right? Is he wrong? We're not getting into that. But a few days into that controversy, an article started getting passed around on Facebook that sparked a separate controversy over whether the Star-Spangled Banner is racist. The article, written by Josh Schwartz for TheIntercept.com, points specifically to this line: "No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave." Now, if you're saying to yourself, I've heard the national anthem before and I don't remember there being a bit about slaves, that's because what we think of as the national anthem is actually only the first verse of the national anthem. The national anthem is actually 4 verses long, based on a poem written by Francis Scott Key called The Star-Spangled Banner. The rest of the poem is largely about the American flag flying over a fort after a battle, and using that image as a symbol for the resilience of the United States of America. So why does the poem stop to take a hard left turn and do a quick touchdown dance around the idea of running down and murdering slaves? For some context, we'll have to explain a little bit about what was happening at the time. The poem, The Star-Spangled Banner, was written during the War of 1812, or as most history classes build it, the Revolutionary War Part 2. This time, the reasons are murkier. The US said it was started because Britain kept harassing their ships and trying to impose trade restrictions. Britain says it was started because the US wanted to make a land grab for their colonies in what is now Canada. Either way, in July of 1812, the US declared war and Britain was not prepared for this. While they had some troops to defend their colonies in North America, the bulk of their force was spread halfway across the world, engaged in a battle with this guy. Since that wasn't going away for a few years, Britain bolstered their North American force by basically teaming up with anyone who had a beef against the US. That includes militias from their northern colonies, Native Americans, or even using impressment, which is basically capturing Americans and forcing them to fight for the crown. And British forces quickly realized another group of Americans that might have a pretty good reason to want to defect: slaves. So as British ships raided US towns, they basically put out the word that any slave that made it into British hands would be free men. And they kept their word. Thousands of slaves escaped and were resettled in British territories, and a few hundred even agreed to join the fight against the US. By 1814, things were going relatively well for Britain. British forces managed to get all the way to Washington and burn the White House to the ground. But when they made their big push for Baltimore, there was a hiccup. The British fleet attempted to barrage Fort McHenry, and the fort held. That bought the people of Baltimore enough time to set up defenses for the British attack. Francis Scott Key bore witness to the battle. He was being held on a British ship, negotiating for the release of American prisoners. Once he was released, he wrote the Star-Spangled Banner based on what he'd seen during the battle. The bit about the hirelings and slaves was sort of talking smack about how the people who teamed up with the enemy got beat down. So there's almost certainly a racist component. Throwing in a jab about how you beat someone down for having the audacity to not want to be owned by you certainly isn't great. Unfortunately, if you put even a shallow amount of research into early American history, you're going to find a lot of people who are racist, because back then most people were crazy racist. Francis Scott Key, the author of the poem, was also a prosecutor who tried to get a guy hanged for having in his possession a pamphlet that said maybe enslaving human beings isn't the best thing in the world. I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you this, but the authors of the Constitution were mostly slave owners. I mean, the guy who wrote the Pledge of Allegiance also wrote a little piece about the dangers of mixing with, quote, the inferior races. These guys were alive in the slave-owning United States. That's the culture you're pulling from. So there's your answer. Is the national anthem racist? The poem it was based on does have a racist component to it, because everything back then did.